Interesting from Obama's statement, I was just saying he didn't explicitly endorse Harris.
And that's certainly very interesting. Perhaps that speaks, though, to the fact that he has a number of allies within the Democratic Party, and that is not exclusive to Kamala Harris. Look, Kamala Harris right now, the polls that have been kind of tallied over the course of the past few weeks when people were kind of speculating that Joe Biden was not the best candidate to lead the Democratic Party forward into the November 5th general election. There was a lot of primary polls that were being conducted to say, look, hypothetically, if Kamala Harris went up against Donald Trump, if Gavin Newsom went up against Donald Trump, and kind of comparing those two odds, Kamala Harris did not fare as well as some of the other candidates were performing rather in some of those polls. So President Obama, he perhaps is understanding that a lot of people are calling for an open convention. He does not want to endorse somebody like Kamala Harris and then have Gavin Newsom come around and somehow win the Democratic nomination. Of course, all accounts right now suggest that it's somewhat likely that Kamala Harris will be the nominee, but it is still important to note Barack Obama is a fairly diplomatic figure within Democratic politics, so to speak, in the sense of, he is, as many former presidents are, they generally try to stay away from endorsing people in primaries and in different sorts of elections. And I would say President Obama is kind of making that same play here. President Obama, he's been on the campaign trail before with all sorts of governors, including Newsom, including Whitmer. And so if he all of a sudden turns around and endorses Harris, one of them become the nominee, that's going to be a big betrayal. And I will leave with this, Leo, on this point, is that there are a number of issues that people are talking about as it relates to how people are able to win the presidency. In particular, there's a professor, Allan Lichtman. He is a professor at American University. He's correctly predicted 9 out of 10 of the last presidential elections using his 13 keys to the White House that don't have anything to do with opinion. They don't have anything to do with polling. And one of those keys is as it relates to the contest, meaning division within a party. And if someone like President Obama comes out openly endorsed as a candidate, that's only going to lead to division in the party, which is only going to further harm the chances that the Democrats have of being successful come November.
Well, Alan Lichtman also said Biden was staying in the race, so you win some, you lose some there. Hey,
That is true.
he
But I
did, he
will give
did,
it to
and
him that
he,
he
he
has
was
a
confident
very
about it.
good track record. I
Yeah,
will say I will give it to him. So let me say in the context of what he was saying for viewers who don't know a lot about him, he is incredibly smart. He's also very partisan in the sense of he is very, very strong Democrat, but he does have the ability to put his predictions aside from his politics in the sense of in 2016 when the pundits suggested Hillary Clinton was going to be successful, he predicted that Donald Trump was going to be successful, one of very few people to do that. So I'm not giving him a ton of credit, but I'm just saying
no, no,
from
don't,
the
yeah,
perspective that he is
yeah,
in right now, I
don't get
think
me wrong. He's got a really good record, but this is maybe a small stain on that. Yeah, interesting
that
Obama,
is
but
true.
yeah, I just don't see how they could realistically put anyone else in here going against the wishes of the president who dropped out. Right? It just seems far little. Too little, too
Well,
late. If this happened maybe in April last year, which is when Biden announced his re-election bid, maybe a different story.
Well, Leo, because there's also the fundraising component, and I'm just fascinated by the fact of how much this is being left out of the conversation. And that is, if the Democrats decide to opt in to get someone like a Gavin Newsom, like a Gretchen Whitmer, all of this fundraising that the Democrats have been able to raise, there's going to be issues with that money in terms of how the Democratic nominee is able to use it. Whereas if Kamala Harris becomes the nominee, because she was actually a part of the Biden-Harris ticket, she simply just inherits all of the fundraising numbers and all of the fundraising money that President Biden was able to do. Of course, this is money that has been raised over the time span of several years. So if all of a sudden a new nominee comes in, the likes of Gavin Newsom, the likes of Gretchen Whitmer, these names that we've been talking about, Josh Shapiro, a really wide range of names here. If one of them comes in, they all of a sudden become the nominee, they're going to have to start out at square one. They're going to have to do in really 2 months what took someone like President Biden several years to be able to do.